Hello and a warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. We drive your business. My name is Anthony Sebale and I am your host. And this, of course, is the #1 business channel bringing you business 24 hours, 7 days a week. Financial Markets brought to you by Otex East Africa, your #1 platform for trading on treasury bonds in East Africa. With Otex East Africa, we are saying you can do something new. How? Because, of course, we give you access to the market using mobile money. Simply go to your phone, MTN or any other line that you're using and dial *292# to experience Otex East Africa at a whole new level. With this, you can learn more about the product. You can sell and buy treasury bonds across East Africa. That is, of course, across the board in Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. And you can also be able to get registered using Otex and begin your journey of investment. Otex East Africa is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority of Uganda and, of course, opens their doors at 8 a.m. and closes at 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. You can trade wherever you are in East Africa. Let's get, of course, right into the show. Of course, coming up on the show, we are going to be, first of all, looking at the performances of the exchanges here within East Africa. That is Uganda, Kenya, and, of course, a couple of other stocks across East Africa and the African continent. Now, also the Capital Markets Authority released their bulletin for the first quarter of 2023, and we are going to be looking at the big points out of this bulletin, and we'll be, of course, hinting on a few things, especially concerning the collective investment scheme and as well as the treasury bond market and how generally the market performed in the first quarter of 2023. There was a lot of improvements. There have been a lot of adjustments, and you don't want to miss out, especially on the performance of the collective investment scheme, how it is improving the lives of Ugandans and transforming the portfolios of different investors in East Africa. Now, let's dive right into the business of the Uganda Stock Exchange. Uganda Stock Exchange trading was quite lower yesterday, comparing that, of course, with the Tuesday trades. And of course, this was a day that saw just a few equities participating. And of course, this is comparing to the Tuesday trades that had quite a number of stocks, about 4 stocks trading on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Currently, the Uganda Securities Exchange has about 18 listings, and 8 of these are cross listings from Kenya, and the 10 are domestic listings from Uganda. In aggregate, we had 3 participants in the trading here on the Uganda Stock Exchange, and these were Umeme, MTN, and Stanbic Bank Uganda. Now, at the moment, the day ended with just 94,688 shares that were traded on the Uganda Securities Exchange, corresponding to a market value of at least over about 15.9 million Ugandan shillings on the closing date. The current market capitalization of the exchange is 17.7 trillion Ugandan shillings as we speak. Now, regarding the performance of the indices that participated in trade, there was only one single loser, and that was MTN, and unfortunately, there were no gainers on the market. MTN was the only loser, losing at least a value of 0.18% down to a price of 165.02 Ugandan shillings. MTN Uganda recorded a volume of 93,400 shares that was traded. However, this did not work to its advantage as the stock slid on the 3rd day of trading here on the exchange. Current market capitalization indicates at least 3.7 trillion of the MTN Uganda's stock. Now, MTN Uganda's story on the exchange keeps to become a little bit more sad. When you look at the current market capitalization of 3.7 trillion, it's a decline of at least about 40 or about 35% from the market capitalization we had at least a year ago, which was above 4 trillion, actually to a tune of almost 5 trillion. Now, current market capitalization represents just 20.9% of the Uganda Securities Exchange. Remember, MTN was listed just recently in 2021, meaning it is currently the most recent IPO we've had on the Uganda Securities Exchange. But the stock came in undersubscribed after, of course, traders were not able to buy out all the shares of the MTN stock as it came on board on the main board of the Uganda Securities Exchange. However, of course, the company really had a lot of money that they were able to get from this initial public offer. And the traders were pretty excited because of, first of all, the electronic nature of the initial public offer. Shares were able to be, people were able to buy shares using their MTN mobile money. People were able to register for their security central deposit accounts for the first time using still their mobile phones, which was quite convenient. And the vibrancy really was quite high at the moment when MTN came on board. However, immediately coming onto the exchange, after getting to the primary market of the exchange, the secondary market rather, after the initial public offer, which is the primary market, where every story of a listing begins, the company started to slide a little bit. And this was at a very rapid pace. The initial public offer was at 200 shillings per share. That is how much value was actually accounted for every share that MTN was trading at the moment. But later on after listing, the stock price began to decline to a tune of 160 shillings in just about 2 months. That is around the month of March in 2022. However, still the stock remained resilient and kept pushing and gained back some value up to at least 180 shillings. Now, in the whole of 2022, from at least the month of May to the month of December, the average price of MTN stock was 180 Ugandan shillings, with a few, of course, changes here and there with the 175 and then 190 at times. But on average, you could tell from the flat line, at least at 180 shillings from the month of November to the month of almost March, the end of the month of February this year, the company stock was at 180 shillings. Matter of fact, the company began this year with a price of 180.0 Ugandan shillings. However, in the month of March, the stock began to decline rapidly again. And this was from 180 shillings very rapidly in the month of March to 170 shillings. This wasn't all. The stock continued to wobble below 170 shillings at 168, 169, and the lowest being 165. Now, current prices are at 165.02 Ugandan shillings per share, with at least 22.4 billion shares out there floating on the Uganda Securities Exchange. For the MTN counter, the company has 3.7 trillion market capitalization based on its current price of 165.02 Ugandan shillings. Now, the company's weekly performance has seen a drop of 1.7% on average, and in the last 4 weeks, at least value of 1.83% has also been lost, and 8.32% in the last 3 months as well. 6 months have also seen a drop of 8.39% and 10.8% in the year-on-year performance. Exactly a year ago, they're accounting for at least losses of 10.8% at MTN Uganda. MTN's previous price was 165.31. That is yesterday but one. On Tuesday, that's the price that was closing. However, the stock price now is back down to 165.02 Ugandan shillings. This looks to be one of the lowest prices they have actually had. Of course, on the 15th of May, they traded at 165.00, which was quite lower, just about 0.02 shillings lower. But that doesn't take away the fact that the company seems to be hitting the bottom price at the moment, and a lot of course, is lingering in the minds of shareholders. But what I have to say is this. If you remember Wummeme's stock last year at 175 shillings, no one would believe anyone who would say in March or in April, that price would have more than doubled. No one. I'm telling you, because at that point in time, Wumeme had a dividend that was issued, and after the people had taken out the dividend, there seemed to be nothing for the take. There seemed to be absolutely nothing. And this is where most investors get lost in, of course, just looking at the dividend and what you're getting back at the end of the year. It's not enough. There has to be a long-term perspective. There has to be a long-term vision for your portfolio. Now, if last year you invested in Wumeme at around the month of October, if you're really lucky to get in at that time when Wumeme's stock was falling from the sky, you would be probably 4 times richer right now with that amount of money you had invested with Wumeme. So I would agree. Yes, MTN is currently facing the current challenges like we are seeing on their stock price, especially because it's going down. But this is an opportunity. This is the time for you to buy this stock. Remember, it is now a requirement of the Uganda Communications Commission for every telecommunications company to list at least 20% of their shares on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And last year, around the month of December, we were actually supposed to witness another IPO. That was of Airtel Uganda, which was supposed to also get to join MTN on the Uganda Stock Exchange to trade their stock. However, of course, due to the prevailing market conditions then, they weren't able to do so because they said, of course, they didn't want their maybe IPO to be undersubscribed, or a couple of other challenges that they foresaw. And of course, since we're coming out of a pandemic and, Ebola was around, so it was a hard time. It was a hard economic time. Inflation was quite high. But sooner or later, they're going to list as well. So there's going to be some bit of competition. Now, before this competition comes, there's no talk of MTN is competing with Airtel on the exchange. No, it's not there. But trust me, sooner or later, that is going to come. And you're going to see the stock rise at some point in time, and we should vote at this point. This is where the hard decisions are for investors, buying when the stock is going down. I'll quote Warren Buffett, and as I've always done, when the streets are bloody, that's the best time to go out there and fish out for all these stocks and get to put your portfolio in order. Because if you buy when they're going up, you're not certain if you're going to be the last buyer when the price is actually reaching its ceiling. But when we are at the price floor, you're sure there's no way to go but up, right? So this is at the point at which I'm seeing MTN stock right now. Currently, you have to take advantage. You have to see what I'm seeing and be able to advance your investment with MTN Uganda. But of course, this is no rush, and no one should coerce you into investing in any company. But as an investor, make prudent decisions. Really make decisions based on your long-term goals, not just the short-term gains and excitement. That's a word for MTN. But as we wind up business for MTN Uganda is the third most traded on stock, still in the third position in terms of trading in the last 3 months. They have recorded at least over about 16.9 million shares, and they come behind Stanbic Bank and Wumeme in as far as the volume of shares traded is concerned on the Uganda Stock Exchange. MTN, besides, we did have Wumeme at 420.0 Ugandan shillings closing price. The stock did not have any change in price at the end of Wednesday's trades and traded at least 1,200 shares on the exchange. Stanbic Bank Uganda had at least 88 shares traded, and about 26.0 was their closing price on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, that's it from the Uganda Stock Exchange. Regarding the performance of the All-Share Index, that is the benchmark index, it paired at least about 0.38 points, losing down to at least 1,028.03 points on the Uganda Securities Exchange. And that's the trading, my friend, from the Uganda Stock Exchange. You can be able to participate in the trade by simply opening an SCD account or a Security Central Depository account. This is opened. You can use it. You can maybe use the online means, or you can go through any of the stockbrokers that are licensed and can help you access the market and open this account. It's absolutely free of charge and get to enjoy your journey of investment. Moving on to Nairobi, we are going to come back to Uganda a little bit. The Capital Markets Authority has something for us, and that's their quarterly bulletin. We're going to be looking at some of the highlights in the bulletin and see what really the first quarter of 2023 had for us, especially in the side of the collective investment schemes. Usually that data is not available until the end of the quarter. That's when we can always get to sit down and actually get to look deeply into the things that concern the collective investment scheme. But on Nairobi Securities Exchange, we had a list of about 46 equities participate in trade on the exchange, ending the day with 15 gainers and over about 16 losers. Ever-ready East Africa led the gainers with a gain of at least over 9.52%. And Ever-ready closed at 0.92 Kenyan shillings per share. The Longhorn Publishers at least added 9.36% of value, and East African Cables added 8.79% of value, whereas the Safaricom stock continued to rise to 8.39% appreciation in price. Quite interesting for Safaricom. It seems Safaricom is getting really back to its feet, and it's a very, very interesting piece of news for shareholders, both local and international, in the stock. Safaricom's current price is 15.50 Ugandan shillings Kenyan shillings rather, after yesterday's gain of 1.2 shillings there on the market. Now, they have, currently in the past 1 week, they have registered their first weekly gains in a very long time, 1.31%. Their 4-week performance has also slightly improved, now at a 9.09% loss, and the 3-month performance at 34.6% loss. But will Safaricom will be able to recover their value at least before the month of June? We watch the space and continue to monitor the stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and of course investor sentiments. Away from the Safaricom stock, TPS East African Serena, of course a hotel based company there, and with several lodges and different accommodations for tourists within East Africa, lodged the worst loss for the day at a 9.41% depreciation, down to a price of 13.50 Kenyan shillings per share. Coming in also at the bottom was Standard Group at 9.28% loss, and BOC Kenya at least 5.82% losses, and Uchumi Supermarket losing 5.26% on the market. Now, Safaricom continued to rally the market also in terms of the volumes, with the biggest volume traded, at least recording 18.2 million traded shares in the day. And this, of course, pushed the volumes in general by a tune of 46% improvement in the number of deals, and 300% improvement in the deals, and over 222% improvement in the turnover, courtesy of the Safaricom stock. KCB Group also traded 2.25 million shares, and the Cooperative Bank of Kenya at least had 1.39 million shares, and Kenya Power and Lighting Company at least over 591,200 shares were recorded. Regarding the performance of the Nairobi Securities Exchange indices, the benchmark index, that is the NSE All Share Index, at least soared by 3.16 points after the improvement in trade there in terms of volume, the deals, and turnover as well. The current point on the All Share Index are 99.98 points, representing a 1-week loss of at least 0.53%. The NSE 25 and the NSE 20 also ticked upwards, with the NSE 25 improving at least by 1.8% and the NSE20 at 0.58%, rather on the other hand. That's trading, of course, from Nairobi Securities Exchange, the busiest and biggest stock exchange in East Africa. Now let's get to look at the quarterly bulletin of the Capital Markets Authority and have a look at some of the few highlights in this bulletin and why you should get yourself a copy of this bulletin so that you can get deeper in the matters of the capital markets of Uganda. Now, at the close of the month of March 2023, according to the bulletin, CIS managers, that is the collective investment scheme managers, had a total of at least 1.757 trillion Ugandan shillings worth of assets under management, representing a growth of 7.9% from at least 1.628 trillion in the quarter ended December 31st, 2022. The total number of active CIS accounts at the end of the period also increased and was up to 44,434 rather accounts, compared to 40,201 accounts active in December. This is an increase of 10.5%. It means more people are getting into the collective investment scheme. Now, before I go any further, let's get to know what really the collective investment scheme is all about, especially for our new viewers here. Now, a collective investment scheme is a scheme where different investors or savers pool funds or savings into one basket, and the fund manager or a licensed manager who is experienced in investment, especially in financial markets or capital markets, gets to invest these funds on behalf of the investors. What happens really is when you have a huge amount of money and then invest in treasury bonds, in treasury bills, in equities, in different money markets, you are going to get a bigger return than you would if each of these individuals was investing on their own or individually. Now, this is why the collective investment scheme has become really famous. First of all, because of its return. The return on the collective investment scheme has been going up from 8% to 9% to 10% to as high as 11 and 12% in some cases. And another thing that has made it famous is that it gives liquidity. There is no investment that gives as much liquidity as the collective investment scheme. You can always withdraw your money whenever you feel like. Of course, this is not all in all advisable because we want to invest for a long term. We want to invest with a vision and a goal. But in case of an emergency, you can always get to retrieve this money from the fund manager. So because it's a pool of funds, there's always money available. And any investor who's interested in retrieving their funds, they can always get back their money as soon as possible. Now, you've seen the growth. In 2022, by December, we had at least 1.628 trillion. And this is also a growth from at least 1.4 trillion in the third quarter of 2022, which was a growth as well from at least 900 billion or something that we had before that. So it has been growing, and the trend seems to be getting more and more and more positive with time. Why? Because of the factors I've mentioned, the liquidity aspect, all right, and of course, the return. That's where we have the kickers in the collective investment scheme. We're going to have more of this report later in tomorrow's, of course, edition of the financial markets. But you can also get yourself a copy from the Capital Markets Authority website and have a look at these figures. It's so important that you keep informed as an investor. Knowledge is everything before investment. And so if you don't have knowledge, you're not even worth, you're not worthy to invest. You have to have as much knowledge as possible before making that move. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. Remember, the show is brought to you by OTEX East Africa. And with OTEX, you can do something new. Simply go to our platform and dial *292# to access that. Register under Zabu and then you can start your journey of investment. Altex East Africa, my money, my future. Do something new. And that's it, my friend. Thank you so much once again for joining me. A lot of business is coming up. And of course, you must stay tuned at Smart 24 TV, where we say we drive business in East Africa. We are located at Plot 42, Nile Avenue, Kampala. And this is where we hail to bring you the business updates and the latest in the world of business. Stay tuned. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye for now.